Good morning and welcome to the village. Today is Saturday, July 18th, and it is 8 a.m. PST. So, whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been here for a while, you are all welcome, and I'm so grateful you're here today. The village was created as a place for women to slow down, reconnect with themselves, restore together in community. And it's a place to step out of the busyness of life and to come together and remember that we were never meant to do this alone and we always have the support that we're looking for and need. So this year, the framework has been going through my PAUSE acronym. We started with P for presence, A for awareness, U for understanding, and S for self. And for the past few months, we've been exploring self, what it really means to reconnect with ourselves. We've talked about self-worth. We've explored nourishing ourselves with gut health. We explored reconnecting with ourselves through sound and sound healing as a tool for nervous system regulation. And today we're continuing that journey through another doorway, movement. And it's not about movement as something to achieve or to get through or another to-do list item. But this is more movement as another way of caring for ourselves, regulating our nervous systems, and reconnecting with our bodies. And I would love to start us off with a poll so we can, as everyone gets in and settles in, we can start thinking more about this. It's the usual starting poll that we use for the village. Lately, my nervous system has mostly been tired and shut down, on edge in fight or flight, fluctuating between the two, or mostly steady. Okay, that's everyone. We've got on edge for one person, more than 50% are in the fluctuating between the middle and the bottom rung, and 30% are mostly steady. Okay, then there's one more survey very specifically to movement that I want to get through, and then we'll introduce Kim. So when it comes to movement, what does your typical day look like? I spend most of my day sitting. I'm on my feet or moving most of the day. It's a mix of sitting and moving, or it varies from day to day. Okay, so we have a couple of people sitting most of the day. I would put myself in that bucket. On my feet for one, mix of sitting and moving for a couple, and then it varies from day to day for a couple. So we're all over the map. So I'm excited to introduce today's guest speaker, Kim Gray. Kim has over 20 years of experience in the fitness and wellness industry, with a career spanning from university recreation, commercial fitness, corporate wellness, and leadership. She previously managed the Federal Executive Institute's wellness program, where she supported more than 800 senior government executives each year, helping them understand how movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress management can improve not only health, but also resilience, productivity, and decision making. Today, she's the founder of WorkBreakStretch, where she's led more than 3,000 movement sessions and created hundreds of resources to make movement accessible for real people living in real lives. Kim holds a master's degree in kinesiology, a bachelor's degree in clinical exercise science, and is a certified exercise physiologist, group fitness instructor, and health coach. One of the things I love most about what Kim's work is that she challenges the idea that movement only counts if it's a full workout. And instead, she helps people discover small, sustainable ways to care for themselves throughout the day and to care for their bodies throughout the day. So, Kim, thank you so much for being here today with us and welcome to the village.
Thank you, Priyanka. I've joined several of the village meetings before as a community member, and I'm happy to be here today as the guest speaker.
I love that. Yes, I'm so grateful you've been here throughout with us, almost right from the beginning. So, I'll just go straight in because we have so much to talk about. Many of us think movement is exercise, right? That's what I've always thought of it. Why is movement actually so important for our bodies and our nervous system, and how is it different from just physical fitness and exercise?
So I often find myself referencing an analogy from the book It's Move a Little, Lose a Lot by Dr. James Levine. And in the book, he basically compares the human body to a computer. When you think about a computer, in order for it to stay powered on, you have to keep typing on the keyboard, you have to move the mouse around or use the trackpad. And if you don't do that, the computer shuts down, it goes to sleep to conserve energy. And our bodies are similar in that if we stay in the stationary positions for too long, our joints start to stiffen, that brain fog creeps in, energy level dips. We become uncomfortable. And I think that uncomfortable feeling, anyone that's ever been on a long flight somewhere, you can't tell me that you've ever actually been comfortable sitting for that many hours, especially in a cramped airplane seat. But to prevent these things, it really can be as simple as moving a little. And when I say a little, it's that's what a little. It's not about moving all the time. Just as sitting all day isn't ideal, neither is standing all day or performing repetitive movements over and over again, day after day. It's really about creating the opportunities to break up those long periods of staying in one position and giving our bodies a chance to power back on, if you want to relate it back to that computer analogy. So, really, movement is important because it can support us when we're tired, when we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed, when we feel like we have nothing left in the tank, or when we're wired and maybe we just need to decompress a little bit. These are all those things are common experiences for many of us, and movement can help. It can help us reduce how often and how intensely we experience these things. And what's great about movement is oftentimes the benefits can show up almost immediately. Circulation increases, that muscle stiffness, it subsides, posture can be reset, that energy comes back, and you might feel calmer and more focused, happier. Movement can also be just a great way to help bring you back into the present moment. All these things, feeling calmer, more focused, happier, all these things can be signs that your nervous system is beginning to settle, shifting out of that heightened stress response and toward that more calmer, balanced state. And I do want to clarify, I'm not saying movement is a cure-all. Nothing is, but it is one of the simplest, most accessible tools that we have because it's available to us pretty much anytime, anywhere. It doesn't have to take much time, and it can be adjusted to fit what we need in the moment. So, in a nutshell, that's why movement is important because it not only supports our health and fitness over the long term, but it can help us feel better in the moment. And again, when I say movement, I'm not talking about a structured 30, 40, 60-minute workout. Yes, there's definitely a time and place for that. Again, Priyanka mentioned it at the beginning. I went to school for exercise science. I thought I was going to own my own gym one day. But over the years, I've become just as, if not more, passionate about the impact of those short bursts of movement throughout the day. But I still encourage people to do the structured workouts as well. But when it comes to movement, I encourage movement breaks that last anywhere as short as 30 seconds, even 30 seconds just to roll out your shoulders, to maybe 15 minutes where you go for a walk or you do some gentle seated stretches or standing stretches if you need. So, like I said, movement, it's great to support our health and fitness long term, but also it can help us feel better in the moment. So, hopefully that answered the question, Priyanka.
It did. It absolutely did. And I want to stress on what you just said, Kim. As we've been talking about the nervous system and regulating our nervous system, one of the things that we have mentioned constantly is this idea of not only bringing that level down in the moment, but also to bring the threshold lower so that we're not easily triggered in the moment. And it looks like what you're saying is movement does both. And it can help right there in the moment. Plus, as you continue to move your body, reconnect with your body, you are also lowering your threshold for future times that you might get dysregulated and can quickly come back to regulation because of that. Is a fantastic plus. I think you answered my next question, which is, can you help us understand the different forms of movement? And maybe you started explaining how that could be different from just exercising. So let's go dive right into how can we understand the different forms of movement?
And that's the great thing about movement too, is that it's adaptable. And what I mean by that is different forms of movement can support different needs. And one thing that I encourage a lot of individuals to do is to ask themselves just, what does my body need right now? Or maybe how am I feeling right now? Because the answers to those questions can guide you towards the specific type of movement that you might benefit from most in that moment. So, for example, if you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, overstimulated, you might want to opt for calming movement. Calming movement is most helpful when things feel like too much or you feel mentally, physically scattered. So, examples of calming movement might be things like gentle stretching, whether that's done in your chair or even lying on a yoga mat or even in bed. There's nothing to say you can't be laying in bed and doing some gentle stretches. Walking, but walking slowly, maybe a mindful walk. That's a more form of a calming movement. We'll talk about brisk walking in a moment. Another calming movement is maybe putting on some slow music and swaying to the music. Or a common one in the world of yoga is pairing your breath with movement. So maybe a gentle yoga flow. And Clarissa, I see that you put in the chat, I go to yoga when I'm in that space. Exactly, right? Yoga can be fantastic for that because doing any of these calming movements, they just help to create a state of steadiness and relaxation. Now, on the other end, if you're feeling sluggish, tired, that brain fog, maybe the brain fog's creeping in, energizing movement is a great choice. This is where maybe that more brisk walk would come into play, or maybe some light bouncing movements. If you have a jump rope, take that jump rope out. Or if you don't have a jump rope, just invisible jump rope. Pretend that you have a jump rope. Walking up and down stairs can help. Or a more fun one, if you're into this, putting on an upbeat song and dancing. Personally, I'm not a dancer, but if I'm by myself and I put on a good song, I can definitely move and groove. If I'm in front of people, I just do not feel coordinated enough to do that. But it can be a great way to, again, re-energize yourself. In the work that I do in workplace settings, I often remind people that low energy in the afternoon, that 2 p.m. slump that so many of us find ourselves in, that slump, it's not a sign that our body needs more caffeine, coffee. It's often a sign that we need to get the blood moving. We need to move a little bit. So energizing movements can be fantastic for that. And then lastly, when you feel muscle tension or accumulated stress in your body, it can be good to focus on releasing movement. And examples for that might be some simple shoulder rolls or maybe some gentle twisting movements. One that I like to do, releasing movement wise, is like gentle shaking, shaking out my hands or shaking out my arms or my legs, as well as some squeeze and release movements like a progressive muscle relaxation sequence, where you tense the muscle and then you actively relax it. So you get that sense of what it feels like to be stressed, which you already know, but then you also understand what it feels like to release that tension. So all of these can help your body and your mind shift out of that holding on and into that letting go. So again, you have the calming movement for when you're overwhelmed, when you're overstimulated, the energizing movement when you're feeling tired or sluggish, and then the releasing movement when you have that noticeable tension and stress. And it is important to note that you don't have to choose just one of these types. Sometimes the best approach is a combination. Maybe you start with a few gentle stretches to release tension, then you follow that with some more energizing movement. I would say the main goal is to choose the types of movement that support you in that moment, but understand that what you need might change as you start moving as well. So again, I break it into those three different types of movement.
So in recap, we have calming movement, energizing movement, releasing movement. And we could land up needing a combination depending on how we are feeling. What was funny to me is when I think of being overwhelmed or overcharged or overthinking, sometimes I do actually need energizing movement to get rid of some of this extra energy that I have. And the way you described it is to start with the calming, possibly releasing of those muscles. I'm wondering, could everyone fit into a different category of what they need at a certain time? And then it obviously changes at a different point of time.
Yes, definitely. And Priyanka, I'm actually very similar to you that like when I do feel anxious, I find that the energizing movements tend to help me a little bit more, at least initially. I think once I get a little bit of that, those anxious feelings and thoughts out, then I like to move more into the calming to bring myself back down. But like you just said, everyone is a little bit different in terms of how they respond and what they need. So experiment to see what works for you.
Great, thank you. Now, for someone with a busy life, especially with kids, how can movement realistically fit into their day without becoming another thing on their to-do list?
Of course. We hear all the time, well, schedule movement breaks and whatnot into your calendar. And sure, you can do that, but you also might feel like that's, again, adding something else to all those other to-dos that you already have. So there's three strategies I tend to recommend, and those are habit stacking, making use of transition times, and then adding movement to things that you're already doing. All these strategies are similar, but they're slightly different. So habit stacking has become somewhat popular in the world of behavior change and habit formation, but the idea is to basically move before or after something that you're already doing. So maybe you have a lot of Zoom calls throughout the day. Before you click join on your next Zoom call, move in some way for 30 to 60 seconds. Again, maybe ask yourself, how am I feeling? And then based on your answer to that, maybe you just do some shoulder rolls for 30 seconds. If you need to get up and march in place, do some jumping jacks for 30 seconds. Feel free to do that. Another example might be after every meeting, stand up and stretch for just a minute or two. Or I know some people, what they do is they know that they're going to be utilizing the restroom throughout the day. So after they use their restroom, they do a few desk push-ups or a few squats or some type of movement before they either get back to work or before they get on to whatever task that they need to tend to next. But the idea is because those other habits or tasks, because they already exist and you're already doing them, you're simply just attaching a little bit of movement onto them. Again, I don't want it to feel like it's another to do. So that's why I say, even if it's just 30 seconds of something, that could be enough time for some of us to have that little reset moment. Then the next strategy I mentioned is using transition times. Our days are already filled with natural transition points, and those moments can be great reminders to check in with ourselves and to move. So examples here might be do a few gentle stretches in bed as a little wake up transition. So instead of just, I know some people already lay in bed because it's hard for them to get out of bed, but myself, like when my alarm goes off, I pretty much get up right away. Whereas I don't necessarily have to do that. I can say, okay, for the next minute, I'm going to do a few little knee hugs while I'm laying here, and that can help you transition into the day a little bit better. For the moms out there, maybe after dropping the kids off at school or once they get onto the bus, just take a deep breath and roll your shoulders a few times. That transition of dropping your kids off or the transition of them going to school, that can be a moment for you to reset. Then at the start or end of your workday, maybe before you start work, you reach up to the ceiling, you do a side bend to each side, or after work to transition back into home life. Maybe once you close that laptop, you just do a quick little lap around the block or even a little walk around your house, whatever that might be. But those transition times, as I said, they can be great little reset moments for both the body and the mind. And then the third strategy is basically adding movement to things you're already doing. So that might be stretching while your tea steeps or while you're waiting for your lunch to heat up in the microwave, or doing some calf raises while brushing your teeth, walking or pacing while you're on a phone call, or maybe you're on a webinar, something like this, where you're not the one that's actively speaking. There's nothing to say that you can't be sitting there in your chair doing a few little stretches. Make use of those times where it is feasible to move in the moment. One thing I like to say is that movement doesn't have to compete with your day. It can become part of your day. And I do just want to mention that I think three important aspects of adding movement to your day so that it doesn't feel like another item on your to-do list is to reframe your mindset on what counts as movement, because it's not just that structured exercise like so many of us think it is. To know what type of movements that you enjoy. I know I've been mentioning you can do calf raises, you can do shoulder rolls. If you don't like those type of things, don't do those things. Find the types of things that you do enjoy. And then we already touched on this, but to know what your body needs in the moment. As we said, does it need something calming? Does it need something energizing, releasing, a combination? And all these things, it can take time. So be patient with yourself. None of us need more pressure. We have enough of that in all the other areas of our lives. So we need movement. We need movement that meets us where we are. No equipment, no required change of clothes, really just an opportunity to check in with ourselves, move a little, and notice how you feel afterwards. I think that's a big piece too, is after you move, ask yourself, how am I feeling now? Because hopefully it's better in some way, whether it's calmer, more energized. Hopefully it's the opposite of whatever however, opposite of whatever you felt before going into it. So hopefully that answered that question, Priyanka.
That was beautiful. I love that you've helped us rethink what movement could look like in our lives. And it's not just about a mindset shift, it's also about recognizing that these little things are still supporting our movement. And habit stacking is a great way. I love that idea. Transition times, I never thought of that. And then also this idea of you're already just standing around waiting for your food to get heated up or your tea to get ready. And that's a great spot to just add in a little movement. So simple and such an easy little trick. One of my favorite things about the village is that we don't just educate here, which is what you've done so far, but we're going to integrate, which is I'm so excited about because that's the whole point of this, because this is our space to really ground ourselves. So rather than only talking about movement, Kim is now going to guide us through a gentle movement practice that we can return to at any time in our day and whenever we need to reset. And I would love for everyone to hold their questions till after, because what we'll do is we'll just stop the recording and then continue the discussion at that point so that we have plenty of time. So this is going to be about 15 minutes or so of movement, and then we'll stop the recording and connect.
Awesome. So what I had planned for today are just a nice little seated movement routine. So if you're sitting down, feel free to stay seated. If for whatever reason you prefer to stand up, you are more than welcome to. Pretty much all the movements and stretches I have planned, you can do standing as well. So it's completely up to you, but I figured it may have been a long week for you all and you just all want a nice little reset, and seated stretching can be great for that. So I'm just going to angle my computer a little bit and I'm going to back up, and you should still be able to hear me okay. So find a comfortable seated position, and I want to make sure that both your feet are flat on the floor. So if you need to scoot more towards the front of your chair, feel free to do that. So feet are flat on the floor. Okay, feet can be about hip width apart or so. And what we're going to do is we're going to work our way up the body, working through all the major joints, moving in a nice, again, calming, relaxing way. So what we're going to start with are just heel and toe raises. So first you're going to raise both heels up off the floor, bring your heels back down, and then raise your toes or the balls of your feet off the floor. So heels come up, and then the toes come up. Heels come up, and toes come up. So a nice movement just to start waking up your ankle joint a little bit. Nothing, again, I don't have anything too crazy planned for this movement break. Heels come up and toes. And of course, make sure that you just have a nice steady breath. Some of the movements will incorporate our breath with it. This one, I just want you to breathe in a comfortable, normal rhythm for you. Let's do this one more time through. And then go ahead, both feet can stay flat on the floor. Next up, we're going to do some alternating knee hugs. So make adjustments as needed, but you're just going to alternate hugging one knee in towards your chest and then the other knee. So again, if you need to scoot further towards the front of your chair, back, okay, however you're able to. And like I mentioned, you're just going to hug the knee in towards your chest. You can grab below the knee on the shin, or for some of you, maybe it's more comfortable to grab behind the thigh. And another option for this one, if for whatever reason that knee hug, if it doesn't feel good, if it's not accessible for you today, you can also just do some alternating heel taps, where you just alternate tapping your heels out in front of you. All right, but this one, I mainly want to do this just to start to wake up through your knee joint and the hip joint. So whether you choose to do the heel tap option or the knee hug option. That's one thing with the movement breaks that I lead through my small business. I tend to give a lot of options so that people can choose the option that they need. Again, in that moment. It's been a theme today, right? What do you need in this moment? So give me about 10 more seconds with our knee hugs. Knee hugs are a great exercise because you could do them sitting in a chair like this. You can do them lying down in bed or on a yoga mat, or even standing. The standing option, of course, requires a little bit of balance. Let's do one more. And release. Perfect. Next on up, we're going to do a seated cat-cow. So feet are about hip width apart. You're just going to rest your hands on your thighs above your knees. And first, you're just going to push that chest out and look up to where the wall meets the ceiling. So you're squeezing your shoulder blades together, looking up. And then we're going to do the opposite. You're going to round through that upper back as if you're separating your shoulder blades. And this time you're going to look down. And we're just going to alternate between those two positions. So chest out, look up, and then round through that upper back, look down. And this is one of the movements that I personally like to incorporate my breath into. And it's a very common to do in yoga as well. When your chest is out, you're inhaling on this part. And then as you exhale, you round through that upper back. So inhale, chest out, look up. Exhale, round through that upper back, look down. So do a few cycles. Feel free going to the rhythm of your breath. And what I always like to say too is if trying to go with your breath, if that's too much for you to think about, if that stresses you out, don't worry, just breathe as you move between the two. But if it feels comfortable for you and you want to pair it with the breath, inhale, chest out, exhale, round. So let's go for 15 more seconds with our seated cat-cow. One more time of each. And once you finish that last cycle, you can just come back to a nice neutral position here. The next movement, this is honestly one of my go-to movements. It's such a simple one, but for me, it really helps me, again, identify the tension and the relaxation. We're just gonna do some shoulder shrugs. So you're just gonna shrug your shoulders up towards your ears and then intentionally relax those shoulders back down. So tense, bringing the shoulders up towards your ears, and then relax those muscles by dropping the shoulders down. And this is another one that you can incorporate your breath into if you would like. So inhale as you raise the shoulders up, and then exhale as you drop the shoulders down. Inhale the shoulders up, exhale the shoulders down. So continue there for a few. And during any of these movements, you are welcome to close your eyes if it helps you relax and just be more in the moment as you're performing the exercises. I know for me, there's certain movements and stretches that I prefer to close my eyes on, and then other ones that, I definitely want to keep my eyes open on. But for seated movements, it can be nice to close your eyes. Let's go ahead and do 2 more of our shoulder shrugs. Last one. And relax those shoulders down. Good. Next up, we're just going to do a dynamic side bend. So make sure you're sitting nice and even in your chair. And from here, you're going to raise that right arm up to the ceiling and just gently lean to the left. And then go ahead, come back through center. Same thing, other side. So left arm comes up and you lean to the right. And at your own pace, you're just going to alternate from one side to the other. So feel free, you can take your time with this one. If that side bend feels really good and you want to hold that side bend for a few seconds or even more than a few seconds, you are welcome to hold and turn it into more of a static stretch. But if it feels good to just flow from one side to the other, just continue to move in that dynamic pattern, reaching up and over. So of course, getting some movement through your shoulder by reaching up, but also getting a nice stretch down the side of your body by adding that side bend. So last few seconds of this movement, seated dynamic side bend. Good, let's do one more per side. Last one. Awesome. Next up, we're going to do dynamic butterfly arms. So place your hands just gently behind your head or fingertips just gently behind your ears so that your elbows are pointing out. From here, keep your fingers and hands where they are, and you're just going to close your elbows in front of you. Get them as close as you can. Okay, some of you might be able to touch your elbows. Others of you may have a little bit of space based on your range of motion, and then you're just going to open back up. So you're closing your elbows and then opening back up. So another one where we're definitely getting some movement through the shoulders, but we're getting a nice opening through the front of our chest and definitely the front of the shoulders. So this is a great one. Throughout the day, if you ever find that you need a little posture reset, this one can be a good one for that. So a few more of our dynamic butterfly arms here. Close and open. And every time you open back up, pretend there's a pencil between your shoulder blades and you're squeezing that pencil together. That can, again, just really help you open up through the front of the body. Let's do 3 more of these. Last one. And you can release those arms down. All right, so we have worked our way up the body, but we have to make sure we do a little something for the neck. I know for me personally, but I know this is the case for a lot of people. A lot of people hold tension in their neck. So we're going to do 2 things to try to let go of at least some of that tension, even if it's just temporarily. So we're going to do head turns to start with. So first, just make sure your shoulders are down and relaxed, and then you're just going to turn your head to the right and then turn your head to the left. Back to the right, and then to the left. And continue turning your head from side to side, adding just a brief pause, maybe anywhere from 1 to 3 seconds on each side before you turn back to the other side. And it's completely normal to not be able to turn your head as far in one direction compared to the other. So if you're thinking to yourself, man, I cannot turn my head quite as far in this direction compared to the other, you're not alone. That's the case for many of us. Let's go ahead, do 1 more head turn per side here. And then bring your head back through center. And then the second exercise we're going to do for the neck are head tilts. So you still want those shoulders to be down and relaxed. And we're just going to tilt our heads from side to side. So you're just going to tilt your head, dropping that right ear over the right shoulder. Come up through center, left ear over the left shoulder. And you're only tilting your head until you feel that gentle stretch down the side of your neck. Okay, you never want to force anything. I often say we need to, it may be, some stretches may be uncomfortable, but they should not be painful. If they're painful, it's either a sign that you should not be doing that stretch, or maybe you're pushing a little bit too far into the stretch. And I want movement to be supportive. Definitely don't want to hurt ourselves. So a few more head tilts, side to side. Let's do 1 more per side. Last one. And then go ahead, bring your head back up through center. All right, let's do 2 static stretches. So we're going to get into a position. We're just going to hold that particular stretch for about 30 seconds. So what we'll start with is just a nice seated spinal twist. So feet are flat on the floor, about hip width apart or so. Make sure you're nice and even in your chair. First, make yourself nice and tall. So reach the top of your head towards the ceiling and then twist that upper body to the right. And you can either grab on to the arm of the chair, the seat of the chair, or just utilize the outer thigh. To use your hands, just provide a little bit of leverage to twist to the right, keeping that nice tall spine. So a great stretch for the low back, but even up into the chest and the shoulders as well. And as I mentioned, since this is a static stretch, we'll just hold each side for about 30 seconds or so, give or take. And take notice to your breath. Make sure you're not holding that breath. Sometimes that's very easy to do with static stretches. You get into the stretch and you find yourself holding your breath. Make sure you exhale. Let's go for 3, 2, and 1. Untwist, and then same thing, other side. So first make sure you have that nice tall spine, and then twist that upper body to the left. Grabbing onto either the arm of the chair, the seat of the chair, utilizing your outer thigh. I don't have an arm on my chair, so I'm doing a combination. I'm using my outer thigh and a seat of the chair. So as I was saying on the other side, just make sure you are breathing. Okay, don't hold your breath. And I'll be honest, sometimes I give that reminder to my to those that I'm leading stretch breaks to, but I need that reminder myself sometimes as well. Sometimes I find myself getting into a particular stretch and I'm holding my breath. So I'm not just reminding you all, I'm reminding myself. Go ahead, untwist. And then the last movement we're going to do, we're just going to do what I call air angels with arm shakes. So the air angel part is you're just going to bring your arms out to the side, up above your head, and then instead of just bringing them straight back down, I just want you to shake your arms out maybe 3 to 4 times on the way back down. So bring the arms up and then shake, 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 and shake. All right, so let's do that maybe, maybe another 3 to 4 times. And feel free to inhale the arms up and then exhale as you shake. So this is an example of maybe one of those releasing movements. I mentioned before that shaking can help you release some of that stress that you're holding on to. Let's do one more time of this one. Bring those arms up and then shake those arms just a few times on the way down. Whatever you don't need, let it exit your fingertips with each of those shakes. But there you guys go. That was about 15 minutes or so, just a nice seated, gentle movement routine. Hopefully that left you feeling maybe less tense, more calm, just more relaxed, whatever. Hopefully it left you feeling better than when you started. That's the main goal.
That was amazing. Thank you, Kim. I already feel like I'm sitting taller and my shoulders are not as high as they used to be. Um, as we come back into the moment, I would love for Kim to start typing up what she'd like to share with us. And I'm just going to have everyone put in a quick poll at the end of how we did while you type it up. And then Kim, please share after that poll how people can reach you, what different ways you have access to movement that people can get a hold of you and see what you're up to, and also whatever you'll be sharing with us. So before we get to Kim talking about that, I just feel like this is a great time for us to check in on how we're feeling and doing. At the end of our time together, I am more tired and shut down, on edge, in fight or flight, or mostly steady. And we are mostly steady. Woohoo! Thank you, Kim, for that. Kim, please feel free to share in the chat how people can reach you, what free resources you have for us.
All right, so I just added it to the chat, but you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on there. I've been posting a little bit more regularly on there, just with some ideas and some tips when it comes to movement. I started a YouTube channel several years ago where I post a bunch of movement and stretch breaks that you can utilize. I promote them as to utilize during the workday, but they can be beneficial anytime. So feel free to check that out. And then I do lead live guided movement breaks, very similar to this. They're not all seated. I would say majority of them are standing, but I do those on Zoom almost daily, Monday through Friday, so you can find the schedule for that. And I did make a note that every other month I offer a free one on Zoom. And the next one is actually this upcoming Wednesday. So if any of you want to do a quick 15-minute movement stretch break this coming Wednesday, it's at 3 o'clock Eastern time. So depending what time zone you're in, feel free. But you can find that on the live.workbreakstretch.com website. And then I believe in the follow-up email that Priyanka is going to be sending out, there will be a PDF handout that includes a 5-minute seated stretch routine. So feel free to print that out, save that document. If you print it out, you can post it next to your computer on your bulletin board. So if you ever want to do a little bit of movement but aren't sure what to do, just say, oh, Kim gave me this. I'm just going to follow through with these quick 5 minutes of movement. But I think that's LinkedIn, YouTube, the live breaks. I think that's what I have for now.
Amazing. Thank you for all of this. So, any last things that you want to share, Kim, before I stop the recording?
I
No?
mean, I don't think so. Much of what we covered is what I just wanted to discuss, just that movement is so much more than just exercise. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but when I went to college, I thought I was going to own my own gym one day. I was so much into like the working out that like that's what's important, and it is. But so is just that movement throughout the day. And that's the biggest thing that I preach these days. That, to be honest, I would rather people just make sure that they're moving throughout the day. And then if they get the chance to work out, do that. Yes, an ideal world would include both. But if you have to pick one or the other, I'm actually leaning more towards make sure you're moving throughout the day for the so many of the benefits, both the physical and the mental benefits of it. But I would say that's the only thing I want to add at the moment.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kim, for being here today and for sharing everything that you have.
Thank you, Priyanka. I appreciate you having me.
Okay, so this is our time now for the community, for our discussion, for asking questions, for learning more, for connecting with each other. So people on the recording, sorry you missed out, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Bye. Okay, so we just finished our discussion with everyone who was there with us live, and a few things came up that I wanted to make sure we mentioned for the people in the recording. I'll start off. So, when sitting tall, even right now, I'm realizing my posture is not great because I'm hunched over, my neck's forward. So, when sitting tall, the idea came up that it's not just sitting tall because sometimes the neck can be forward, that it could be leaning back. And I'd love for you to share your thoughts on that, Kim.
Oftentimes, when we think of posture, we often just think of the forward hunch shoulder position. So, oftentimes, people will just say, well, just draw your shoulders back, and then your posture is reset. It's not necessarily that simple. Our body is a kinetic chain, but when it comes to specifically the upper body posture, yes, you want to draw your shoulders back. You want to make sure your shoulders are down. And because of the tech world we live in, Priyanka, as you just mentioned, sometimes our neck tends to be forward. So ideally, you want to try to draw your head up and back slightly. Cue, or if you can stand in front of a mirror or maybe have someone take a picture of you, what can help is from the side, ideally you want your ear to be like over your shoulder. If it's too far forward, you want to bring that head back a little bit. And of course, if you're used to being in that head forward position, it's going to be very uncomfortable to all of a sudden be in that proper alignment all day. So it's a matter of having those mini little reset moments, right? Maybe like every hour, you make sure to reset yourself. But again, that can be a good way of thinking of it. Ear in line with the shoulder. Did that answer it, Priyanka?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that about how to sit tall. I definitely could use that. I've at least started doing where I put my back forward and I'm not completely leaning against my chair, but I think I need to add in the sitting my neck forward because my these big muscles here, the sternocleidomastoid muscles, are
Yep,
pretty tight. So I think that also makes me want to just stay downwards when I need to bring it back up. So thank you for sharing that.
of course.
Um, the other thing that I wanted to make sure we addressed is this idea of listening to our bodies because we talked about exercise, we moved into exercise a little bit. You've been talking a lot about movement and understanding and thinking for our bodies, but even with movement, there's certain times that we may not be able to do the movements that we are scheduling for ourselves to do, whether it is a full-on exercise or if it is, oh, this is my movement break and I got to go do something or go for a 15-minute walk. So listening in and tuning to our bodies is something that came up, and I'd love for you to share what your thoughts are on that.
Listening to our body, it can take, you can think about that in different ways. As I briefly mentioned during the talk, before a movement break, you can ask yourself, what do I need right now? How's your body feeling? During the movement break, you can ask yourself, during particular stretches and movements, like, how does this feel? Because we have to learn the difference between good pain and bad pain, especially when it comes to movement. Because it can be very easy to keep pushing through an exercise like, oh, like there's a sharp stabbing pain in my shoulder when I'm doing this overhead press, but I still have 3 more reps, so I'm going to do it. Bad pain tends to be those sharp, Pain, sudden pain, snapping, maybe you feel a snapping. If anything like that ever occurs when you are moving, stop right away. Do not continue the movement because that means that your body should not be doing that and you potentially injured yourself. Whereas if you feel like maybe just a gentle sensation, for example, when we did the lateral neck stretch earlier, those head tilts, as I said, it may be a little uncomfortable, or you may feel a little bit of tension in the neck. And that's simply you stretching that muscle. It's not painful, it's just that stretching sensation. That is completely normal. So that's one way of, again, listening to your body in the moment. Was this a good pain or is this a bad pain? And that's something that you have to learn. There's been plenty of times where I've thought to myself, oh, this is a normal, this is a good pain. Whereas I learned the next day that, oh, okay, that was not a good pain because I'm inflamed. There's a bruise there now. So it's easier said than done. So that's again listening to your body in the moment. And then there's also just listening to your body overall. And we were talking a little bit before during the non-recorded part about recovery days. When it comes to movement, especially exercise, society ingrains in us that at least 5 days a week for 30 minutes, it should be intense. The muscle should be burning. You should get that heart rate up. Yes, formal work, structured workouts, you are going to have some more intense workouts compared to others, but that type of exercise is stress on the body, and our body needs time to recover in between. So listening to your body can also be, am I recovered from yesterday's workout? If you're still pretty sore from your workout the day before, that doesn't mean you shouldn't move at all today. But if you had another tough workout plan today, maybe skip the tough workout and replace it with something less intense until your body is recovered. So that's another way of, again, listening to your body. Am I
Mm.
recovered from the workout previously? And just how am I feeling? How did I sleep last night? Because all those things play a role as well.
That completely is something I need to be more mindful of. But you also brought it towards sleep and diet. And feel free to share what you said there.
Sleep, as I briefly mentioned, exercise is stress on the body, and we don't want to stress ourselves day in, day out without having the proper recovery. In the world of strength training, there's a common, I don't even want to say saying because it's not a saying, but when you're strength training, basically what you're doing is you're tearing the muscle fibers. So muscle grows when you're not actually doing the exercises because you do the exercise, the muscle tears, and then once you leave the gym, that muscle starts repairing itself. But if you don't allow enough time in between, you just keep on tearing, 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 and not recovering. And part of that recovery process, of course, is fueling your body properly. So you want to make sure that you're hydrating with water. You want to make sure that you're getting the vitamins and the minerals that you need, plenty of fruits and vegetables, because those are going to be the things that are going to allow your body to repair and recover in between your exercise, your workout sessions, and then sleep. Sleep, I think there actually is a saying with this one that sleep is the most underrated health habit. And I would have to agree with that because when someone doesn't sleep well, they're not going to have the energy to move and do any type of workout. When someone doesn't sleep well, they're probably more prone to want to reach for the bag of chips versus having some vegetables and hummus or something like that. And I'm not saying you can never have a bag, some chips and whatnot, but you don't want it to be that repetitive cycle there. So the sleep pretty much impacts everything else. Sleep is our chance to recover, rejuvenate, and if we don't allow our body to do that, it's going to make everything else a little bit more difficult. So,
Mm.
again, easier said than done, but focus definitely on sleep, proper nutrition. All those things are going to aid in movement and working out and exercise.
So true. So true. And then I think the other thought that came up during our discussion was unrealistic ideas. Something that in society we tend to have this idea of putting in the work or doing the reps or doing how much society tells us to do, but then to really listen in. And this idea of listening into our bodies can also be brought to our body as a woman, where we have cycles, where we have different stages, where we then go through perimenopause and menopause, where our bodies are just not what they used to be. And to have these unrealistic goals of being able to keep up like we used to when we were in our 20s compared to now is also something we need to be mindful of. And this is perfectly bringing into the fact that you brought in where movement doesn't have to be the exercise. Movement can still be incorporated throughout the day, even on those off days where our hormones are off or out of whack, where we are having those cravings or where we didn't get the good sleep or didn't get the good diet that we wanted to have had so we know our body's not going to be able to keep up where we would expect it to, and yet we can still bring in the stretch and the movement. So I love that you brought that up. Anything more you'd like to add to that, Kim?
I would say the only thing to add to that is it just kind of brings us back to those like different types of movements,
Mhm.
right? Like when you didn't sleep well, or for a female, if it's like during a certain part of your cycle and that you don't have that energy to do those energizing movements, maybe during those few days, you still want to move. So you're going to focus more on those calming, releasing type movements. The calming, energizing, releasing movements, yes, they're part of doing movement breaks, but you can also do the same thing with workouts. Instead of an energizing, intense workout, maybe your workout that day is more calming in nature. So, yep, definitely all relates back to listening to your body. What does your body need right now? How are you feeling? Listening to that brain.
Yeah, thank you. Kim, before we hang up, I just wanted you to take a moment to really spell out how people can reach you because I know you put it in the chat, but I wanted to have it in the recording for people who are listening in or watching the video who won't have access to that chat.
Oh, of course. I'm on LinkedIn. If you search Kim Gray Charlottesville, because I currently live in Charlottesville, Virginia, I'm pretty sure that you will be able to find me. I think I'm the only one that pops up. So again, Kim Gray, Gray, and then Charlottesville. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel for that. If you go to YouTube and if you search so the at symbol, work break stretch, just all one word, work break stretch. You will see my face pop up in a bunch of videos. I started a YouTube channel several years ago, and they're anywhere from like 45-second little movement breaks up to I think the longest video I have is about 10 minutes. Again, they're not meant to be workouts, they're meant to be those movement breaks. So feel free to check that out. And then I also offer live Zoom sessions almost daily, Monday through Friday, where I lead 15-minute movement and stretch breaks. And to find out more information about that, you can go to live.workbreakstretch.com. So again, live.workbreakstretch.com. And again, you'll see little pictures of me on the website. So that's how you'll know you're in the right place.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And I'll have these in the show notes as well for people who want to go looking for them. This was a beautiful discussion, Kim. Thank you for being a part of the village as a community member and for speaking to us all about movement today. I'm so appreciative of having you in my space, and I hope to see you in some of your sessions and continue to see you in our village.
Oh, definitely. I will be there, Priyanka. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you.